Honorable Minister Jagutpal.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I am going to limit my intervention only to amendments pertaining to Clause 21 and 50 of the Finance Bill 2020. Now, before Clause 50 of the bill proposes to amend the Pharmacy Act to include the Indian Pharmacopoeia as additional standard concerning medicine, Mauritians have become very much familiar with IP now. Members of the opposition have made it their priority to induce the population in error as to this pharmacopoeia. A lot have been said, and one word in particular repeated with insistence: politics, cheap politics about substandard. Today, Mr. Speaker, sir, I will explain to this august assembly why we should move to adopt IP as an additional standard. I will also call it the bluff of the opposition, but in light their fabricated insinuations, their half-truths about this Indian pharmacopoeia. I have here a list of documents, the public sector as well as the private sector, about the drugs that has been purchased by the ministry, not since today, not during the COVID, but well before. And I'm at the same time going to remind the honorable member that in the clinic that he's practicing, I will just give a letter dated on 23rd August 2019. I'll only just say what has been written. Kindly note that we accept to use IP.
The Honourable Minister has made
No, I haven't given you the floor. Is it a point of order? You sure?
It's a point of explanation.
No, you have no right for any point
Then
of
it is-
explanation. Please,
So I'll just
don't disturb the proceeding of the House.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll just have a letter, not one letter, many letters, about the use of IP drugs in the private sector. I'll only read one line. Kindly note that we accept to use IP specifications as per prescribed products below and will be solely used in our facilities. So these are the letters. I don't have one, I have many, as well as for the public sector. And IP drugs, should I repeat it again? So I have many. Anybody who wishes to consult it with me, they are most welcome. It's not, the date is, this one is for 23rd August 2019, and it is for IP drugs. Similarly for the public sector, I have a lot of documents. I want to share it with you. And these documents have been
Parliamentary
shared
democracy,
about
please.
the purchase of IP drugs. At that time,
Parliamentary democracy, please.
at
Parliamentary
that time,
democracy. Honorable Shakil Mohammed, my ruling is not to be questioned. I don't take orders from you. I don't take orders from you. I don't take orders from you.
It's pay.
I don't take orders from you. I don't take orders from anybody. The last warning I'm giving you, Honorable Shakil Mohammed, the last warning I'm giving you. This is the last warning. Continue.
Yes, so I have many documents for the public sector as well. This is a proof, common practice to have recourse to such medicine. Members will note that the supply of IP drugs are not only for one company, for many companies. For example, I got nothing to say against these companies. On 26 September 2019, my ministry gave approval for the purchase of some medication called bleomycin of Indian Pharmacopoeia. And same was supplied by one company called SH. This is a bogus company that has been mentioned. Now, similarly in the past, at hospital level, local purchase of IP drugs were approved by the then Director of Pharmaceutical Services, and among these drugs were isoprenaline, Ertuline. There are so many. Another example, Mr. Speaker, sir. On 14th of May 2019, one private health institution approached again IBL for the import of syntocinon that my colleague in the same profession as mine will know, and these are IP drugs. And that private institution clearly stated the following request: kindly note we accept to use IP specifications. So IP specification doesn't date since yesterday. The law at that time was not law. Then there was no security. Then there was no side effects, like the honorable leader of opposition was saying. Then there was no conspiracy. Then there was no emergency. And this was the logic of the opposition. See how they are trying to put the population in error. Those medications, now I'll move on.
Order, please.
It pains. It's going to be very painful.
Order.
I guess.
Honorable Minister,
On a point of
make
order.
sure you have a point of order.
Why you threaten me
Make
every
sure you have
time?
a point of order.
I mean, it's
give
not
you the
a point
floor.
of conversation, I can assure you.
I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. How kind of you. My point of order is that I hear the Honourable Minister and apologize for disturbing him. And I'm so happy and very thankful to you, sir, for having allowed me to speak. Could I just please request, through your permission and your authorization, that he at least tables the documents that he's referring to? That's standing orders. That's all I wanted to say. I hope I have not offended you. Please. Okay?
After your speech, you can...
Public sector's document, private sector's
Okay.
document.
You carry on.
Now, okay, I guess from now, Honorable Mohammed will move to initiate inquiries on all those companies which supply IP drugs. Now, I remember very well.
I ruled after his speech, will table it. Continue.
I'll table the documents. Now, please. Wait, let me finish. I'll take reference. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I remember that his people within my ministry will surely assisting him in leaking the corresponding documents, because at one time when the P&Q was addressed to me, documents were leaked from my ministry, and why those documents haven't been leaked? I asked these questions. This is called hypocrisy, cheap politics. This is what should be expected. This is what should be expected from such members. They portray themselves as patriots, working for the country, but the impression that they serve for powerful lobbies. I will explain. Last week, in his speech in Finance Bill, Honorable Mohammed concluded on saying from Stephen Hawking, to allow me to quote it, the thing about smart people is that they seem crazy to dumb people. This is the documents that will tell you who are smart, who are dumb, and at what time they become dumb. On this note, allow me now to expose the unacceptable and systematic smearing of the IP by members of the opposition. I will quote from same Hansard. Honorable Mohammed claims to have gone through. This is what he stated in this House on 14th of July. They will not be able to produce a document where it is specifically stated in Hansard or otherwise, or where the leader of the opposition or members of the opposition have stated that medication from India is substandard. We are talking of IP drugs. Are we talking of drugs from America? We are talking drugs from India. And that's what they were referring to. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, sir, to refresh the honorable member's mind.
No conversation.
Let us bear in mind that Honorable Mohammed is seated next to Honorable Boulel. He also clearly made it understood that he is somewhat gifted in hearing things emanating from orifices that he has himself said. But he failed to grasp what has to be grasped. On 8th of June, during the debates, 2021 budget, Honorable Boulel was commenting on setting up of a pharmaceutical industry and adoption of IP in Mauritius. He stated the following, again read from the answer. When you look at the amendment in relation to pharmacopoeia, I would advise government to have a fresh look at this, what it means that we are going to manufacture drugs which are not of the quality, unquote. 15 June 2020, during the PNQ, in supplementary questions on medicine, imported from India by a particular company, the leader of opposition stated the following. So it means it has been supplying medication to the hospital and medication which is substandard. Again, substandard medication quoted.
No response on this side.
So,
This is fair debate in parliamentary democracy.
on 14th July, during the debates of Finance Bill 2020, same leader of opposition stated, I quote, we were safe, yet we were having those medications. And we have revised procurement protocol facilities to buy substandard drugs of Indian pharmacopoeia, unquote. Honorable leader of opposition is clearly referring to medicine from India as substandard, systematically, and each and every time he talks about IP. It's on record. How can someone be so responsible when talking about standards of a country with which we share close relationships? A country that has helped us time and time again when we are confronted with difficulties, with difficult situations, especially during COVID-19. The Honorable Leader of Opposition was himself a Minister of Foreign Affairs. This is how he managed diplomacy. Such unfounded, false, and hurtful comments, dangerous, that cannot be voiced out shamelessly in this House, especially for cheap politics. Last week on the same bill, Honorable Mohammed read from 2 documents bearing minutes of my ministry's permanent secretary, and he claims that these documents have supposedly been tabled. I checked, Mr. Speaker, sir. No such document has been tabled in this House. In fact, Honorable Member was reading from confidential documents that his people inside my ministry shamelessly leak out those documents week in and week out. Again, this is how these gentlemen and women operate, and this is the definition of conspiracy. A conspiracy blatantly condoned by Honorable Mohammed and, of course, the opposition. Honorable Member, read and advise from principal pharmacist of my ministry, and it's unanswered again. It is primordial to carry out due diligence on source of supply as it entails efficacy and safety concerns, unquote. Then he said, if the minister has decided to depart from the advice of the principal pharmacist, referring to efficacy and safety concern, this is his problem. I will come to that again. Honorable Member should think, revert back to his people inside his ministry. Does he think that there has been no follow-up? He has only part of the document, and with part of the document, he has come here and to show that he wished to impress here the members of the opposition. In fact, why should he bother to know or ask more questions? He only took what served his purpose, and that vile purpose was simply to give the impressions that drugs being sourced from India are flawed and devoid of efficacy. Again, Honorable Mohammed went further in his remarks. I answered again. The law is the law. The Pharmacy Act today says clearly that no one shall bring drugs into Mauritius that does not conform to a prescription or specified standards. Yet, those drugs are here. I'll again try to give a mention about the ventilators over here. The ventilators that we have purchased, it's definitely that they have been, whenever whatever has been specified for the ventilators, all has been respected by the technicians, by the consultants. All the documents needed. Especially, we take, it's good that he has raised this point, whether the maintenance of the ventilators, whether the accessories, all have been taken into account before we bought those ventilators. Obviously, all those have been taken. Now, I have no doubts, Mr. Speaker, on the legal insight of someone who have a deep knowledge about books. However, I'll repeat it again, Honorable Mohammed. It would be glad to know that purchase of IP medicine has come on practice for years now. I'm sure that Honorable Omir also, he happens to be a consultant and he is well aware of this. If he is not aware, I'll give him these documents and he'll come to know. IP drugs mentioned earlier are sourced by established suppliers without any problem at all. It's only when government has sourced IP drugs, it's a problem. So this is pure demagogy. The ministry also had recourse not only to one, but several such suppliers over the years. And these drugs are readily available and they save lives. In the same vein, last year, Mr. Speaker, sir, there was no emergency, no COVID. We bought Herceptin. I believe that they know what is this drug called trastuzumab, a drug used to treat breast cancer. It's from the Patel and Company. Now, this drug doesn't even have a pharmacopoeia standard. This drug neither goes to BP, as Honorable Farhad Omir, Dr. Farhad Omir said, no IP, no European or American or any standard. Yet, it has been bought by the ministry. And why? Because this drug is life-saving. What should we have done? We shouldn't buy those drugs? Should we let the people who are suffering from cancer? I'm just referring to him. I'm referring to him because
Don't
he
interrupt.
mentioned about IPBP.
Parliamentary democracy, you should leave the honorable member to debate.
I wish that members of the opposition contact their people within my ministry to get some leaked documents, as has been their strategy. Mr. Speaker, sir, the backdating of the proposed amendment to the Pharmacy Act will in fact allow us to regularize all these issues. There is no cover-up. As suggested by the opposition, it's only common sense. Of course, some companies will retaliate through their ambassadors. You know very well why. As a caring government, it's our duty to establish fair pricing model. Encapsulating the existing and new medicine, I can see no wrong in adopting the IP because the IP drugs is available in Mauritius since years. The honourable members on the other side of the House are referring to retrospective amendment as if it were a completely new concept in this House. Last week, during the debates on the finance bill, Honourable Utim has commented on the amendments. I'll quote, "How can we be asked to backdate a law to make it lawful to do what this government did and to know fully well was illegal, unlawful, and at that time they did it," unquote. I trust the learned member of the opposition is aware that the supreme law of the land, our constitution, provides for the following section 46 subsection 4. No law made by Parliament shall come into corporation until it has been published in the Gazette, but Parliament may postpone the coming into operation of such law or make such law retrospective in effect. I'll only inform the House who moved the bill in the House when, speaking about retrospective law, the House are familiar with the National Assembly Retiring Allowances Act. Who moved the bill in the House? It was none other than the leader of the Labour Party. We should remember that this act was amended with retrospective effect, which means that it was deemed to have come into operation on 16th November 1995 by Act 7 of 1996. Now, this is in fact very interesting because, Mr. Speaker, sir, the amending act, that is the National Assembly Retiring Allowances Amendment Act 1996, had the effect of deeming the period that general elections were postponed constituted a served term. I am tabling the shocking Section 3 of the subsection 4, which introduced by the National Assembly retiring allowance. I believe that this will help members of the opposition to know what is a retrospective legation. Now, let me come up to, again, Honorable Mohammed, during your intervention on the finance bill last week, he said that I have met the director of High Perform in my office and that I was conspiring to make an unlawful act. This is how these people used to operate in the past, Mr. Speaker, sir. We are in this government, do not follow their modus operandi. The opposition has opened the debate to include my past tenure as chairman of the Medical Council of Mauritius and have thought to suggest that I have been favoring Mr. Ashwin Bandhan. For the record, I stated in the House that I did not know High Perform Limited or any other dozens company owned by Mr. Bandhan. I don't know his companies, but I never stated I didn't know that man in person, Mr. Ashwin Bandhan. In fact, I have crossed swords with Mr. Bandhan in the Medical Council of Mauritius. On the 4th of July 2017, 11 members of the Council, including 5 newly appointed members, frontally challenged my decision and that of the Council to have a sitting judge as chairperson of the interview panel for the appointment of a new registrar of the Medical Council. In fact, Mr. Bandhan was one of the 5 newly appointed members who was part of the challenge. They were somehow uncomfortable with a sitting judge of the Supreme Court chairing the interview panel. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm tabling the letter sent to by the 11 members challenging my decisions. Now, in fact, on 29th May 2020, a meeting was held with directors of High Perform, along with directors of other companies, namely Mr. SM of FTM and Mr. AG of IBL Health, companies who import psychotropic drugs in the country, and our meeting was solely meant to see how it's good that they are good at doing some investigation. That meeting was meant solely to see how ministry could facilitate timely import of such drugs, because there was a shortage of these drugs on the market. You know, my ministry was in fact approves the quota for the purchase of psychotropic drugs by suppliers. In order to make sure that there is no shortage, we had to review the timing process. It has been convened to process the demands of the suppliers and deliver the quota approval to prevent potential shortage. The meeting was also attended by the SC of my ministry. I challenge the Honourable Member to man up Honourable Mohammed, and to come up, not to hide behind parliamentary immunity, and to go to competent authorities, initiate on an inquiry what he has claimed. You stated,
Continue.
Mr. Speaker, sir, someone who has stated.
No
what
comments
he said
on the speech of
about,
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, what he said about the minister has decided to depart from the advice of the chief pharmacist. Either he is blissfully unaware of the role of a minister, or he is pretending for the sake of political mileage, not to be aware of the role of the minister. I have to remind him. Ministers, by virtue of Section 62 of the Constitution, have the following responsibilities. The President, acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, may, by directions in writing, assign to the Prime Minister or any other minister responsibility for the conduct, subject to this Constitution and any other law, of any business of the government, including responsibility for administration of department of the government. This section should be read together with Section 68, where any minister has been charged with responsibility for administration of any department of government. He shall exercise general direction, and not to interfere in the administration of the ministry. So somebody who has been minister in the past, and he's reasoning as such, I don't know. Fortunately that they are not ministers at present. Now, again, it's good that the finance bill also proposes that to amend Section 22 and 24 of the Medical Counseling Hall. The House will note that prior to the introduction of pre-examinations for newly graduated medical students, They were provisionally registered by the Medical Council of Mauritius. The Medical Council determined the duration of the training, but since November 2016, PRE has become mandatory in order to allow fresh graduates to be registered as pre-reg officers to do internship in our hospital. The Act was first amended in 2013 to the effect that the medical graduate to register medical practitioners had to produce documents stated that he had passed at one sitting 3 subjects with, at HSC level with a minimum of 21 points. Given the above provisions, we are now ensured that students enrolling on medical studies have good academic standards, and holding the PRE is therefore superfluous. After 18 months of training, pre-reg would have to be successful in the medical registration examination in order to be registered as medical practitioner. These examinations were organized by the National Board of Examination, NB, for the past 6 years. The latest MOU we had with the NB lapsed in 2019, and it will be renewed this year. The House will also note that necessary arrangements have already been made to carry out the MRE examination this year by end of August. It's our duty to ascertain that medical practitioners entering our service duly qualified and possess the necessary skills and academic background required. I'm, however, once more sorry to note the stand of Honorable Leader of the Opposition on this choice. During his intervention on the Finance Bill 2020, he has in fact invited me to give due consideration to work with institutions of repute of the likes of the Imperial College of London. I have absolutely no problem with the Imperial College of London, which is in fact a body of international repute. But then, by stating that we should consider the likes of the Imperial College, the Honorable Leader of Opposition is once more being discourteous and demeaning towards the Indian institutions who have been, since 2013, helping Mauritius to get those examinations. I also over here wish to mention what Honorable Faradomir said, that he intends that we should have a national examination. But unfortunately, our doctors, they are not academicians. Our doctors are clinicians. And to do examination, we require academicians. We don't have those expertise in Mauritius. We can't, at the next day, decide that the Medical Council will start organizing the examination. And in fact, he has, at the same time, he just proved that the Leader of Opposition has said to go for Imperial College, and he said that we should have a national examination. It's good that they sorted their matters between themselves. We have worked out with the NB for the last 6 years without any problem, and now I don't understand why Boulez, Honorable Leader of Opposition, Dr. Boulez, grudge with Indian standards. We've seen that. An institution, but this has to stop, and we should accept that NB remains a body of international repute. The Leader of the Opposition and Honorable Duval also highlighted what they believe are discriminating practices against those who have studied medicine under the French system. They're absolutely wrong, and I can assure the House that there is no discrimination whatsoever. The honorable members will note that as we speak, we have 245 registered specialists with French qualifications in Mauritius, 156 general practitioners with French qualification, and 24 temporary medicine practitioners who qualified from France. It's only 8 practitioners who have been rejected. I will tell you why. Honorable Duval suggested that I could solve the situation in Mauritius with a stroke of a pen. A decision of life-saving, especially for doctors, we have to bear in mind. I understand your concern, but unfortunately, those doctors, they have only an attestation. Do you want us, with a stroke of a pen, to say that an attestation is a specialist? Now, do we want to have a derogation only for the French? We can't do that. If we have a law, we have to get it universal. And do you know, if we do that, how we open the doors? Because you should know that in Mauritius, we have doctors qualified for so many countries. Now, at the same time, I will reckon that there are doctors that who has not done their pre-registration, because the system in France have changed. They have doctors who have done their undergraduate and then move on to the postgraduate immediately. But those doctors who have done postgraduate for 5 years, including doing it in specialties where there is clinical practice, we have no problem to register them. But it happened that there is one case of a doctor who is very good, who has obtained 5 A's at HSC level, who has gotten scholarship. But unfortunately, that doctor has joined microbiology, and he has not done any clinical training. I totally agree with you that we have to do something for that doctor, but at the same time, we can't open the doors for everybody. This, I'm sure I'm going to work it out, and I'm going to come for a proposition for an amendment on that aspect. Now, allow me to inform the House. Yes, so the claim of the opposition it's not just blowing matters out of proportion. To conclude, allow me again to quote V. Alexander, an Indian politician from the state of Tamil Nadu, and maybe Honorable Mohammed should listen to this very carefully. The trick of being smart, is knowing when to play dumb. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.